wrestling fans of the world. It is me, the real Bobby Munson, and I'm coming at you with a new edition of Ring Respect Radio. I have a very special guest on the show with me here today, but before we get started, I want to get you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications as well so you know anytime I release new material here on Ring Respect Radio. Today on the show, I want to welcome my very special guest. You may know him from Wildside TV. Is the man with the angelic voice, Mr. Papa Smokes. Welcome to the show, Papa Smokes.
Yo, Munson, how you doing? Papa Smokes, glad to be here on Ring Respect Radio.
Glad to have you on the show, finally. We've been doing Wildside TV together now for, I believe, 16 weeks, 16 episodes, 16 weeks of Wildside TV, and I thought it'd be great to present something that the fans can listen to where they get to know Papa Smokes a little bit better. So that's why I wanted to have you here on the show. So let's start off, Papa Smokes. I wanted to know a little bit more about Papa Smokes. Where did Papa Smokes begin?
Well, the whole Papa Smokes thing began in the 70s back in old Manitoba there. That's where I'm from. We moved to Winnipeg, Manitoba when I was a small child. And we've always been a family of sports fans, all about the hockey, all about the football especially, and all about professional wrestling as well.
So when you say professional wrestling, okay, so what was your earliest memory of getting into professional wrestling, and who introduced you to it? What made you sit there and go, this is for me, this is what I want to get involved with more?
Well, it was easy for me as a young tyke. I suppose I had two older brothers, a fair bit older than me, who influenced me in a lot of ways like that. And we started watching a program called Pacific Northwest Wrestling in the early 70s when I was a small child. This show was based out of Vancouver, British Columbia. The promoter's name was Al Tomko. He's a famous promoter in Canada. This show had really captivated me as a small child. They had a really good thing going on there. I'm trying to think of some names that people would still recognize from today, but Gene Kiniski, obviously one of the more famous and decorated Canadian wrestlers, was on that show, as well as a tag team from New Zealand known as the Sheepherders. We would later know that team as the Bushwhackers from WWE. We also Honky Tonk Wayne Ferris was a wrestler back then in that promotion. Also Dr. D. David Schultz, who has been one of my favorites all through these years and still today. And they had a great thing going on down there. They had feuds, feuds. They had cage matches. They had grudge matches. It was just absolutely captivating for me as a young child. That's how I first started my love affair with professional wrestling.
So you talk about some of your favorites from this particular company and everything. What drew you to your favorites? Let's dig a little bit deeper into some of those particular individuals and what it was about them that made you have this love for what they did, the art they presented inside the squared circle.
I think I probably wasn't typical as a small child fan. It wasn't the baby faces or the heroes that I gravitated towards, but rather, I was impressed by the heels and the villains. You know, as a kid, you expect people to act a certain way. You expect people to be nice and logical and such like that. And on the wrestling program, it wasn't like that at all. This puzzled me. This caused me to think about wrestling and about the particular wrestlers for a long time. We had this Honky Tonk Wayne Ferris, who was a fast-talking jerk of a guy, basically, and he didn't care what the fans thought. We had those Sheepherders as well, like I mentioned before. They were just heels all the way through. Bad attitudes, cheating, drawing blood on their opponents and such. It was captivating to me as a kid.
So when you talk about a team like the Sheepherders and stuff like that, when you witnessed them back in the day, did you ever think that these guys would go on to be somebody that you would see on regular television performing each and every week or something like that? Or, did they just seem like a couple of the regular guys on the roster that were just there to put on the weekly shows with that particular company?
Yeah, we saw them regularly enough. They were tag team champions. They had belts and such like that. But I don't think I was looking ahead at that time to what wrestling was to become in the world. Nobody could have seen that it was going to become a global corporation, a huge force in popular culture like it has become. But back then, this was just even before cable TV, before the internet, before all that stuff. We just watched them every week, every Saturday on the TV show, and we were highly entertained.
So, speaking of which, yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot of change in wrestling over the years. I mean, you've seen it go from the territory days to what we've seen, in the past couple of decades to this, where we are right now with the release of the internet. How we present Wildside TV each and every week to the fans, and many other companies doing a very similar thing, being able to reach out to a larger fan base. What have you seen over the years that has intrigued you the most? Which eras have been the most, captivating for you, and stuff like that? And what are some of the reasons why as well?
For sure. Well, after this promotion I've just been talking about, Pacific Northwest Wrestling, Winnipeg's territory or major territory was the AWA, or American Wrestling Association, which was one of the three big wrestling federations at that time. This is now fast forwarding to the early 80s, I guess. There was the American Wrestling Association, the National Wrestling Alliance, or NWA, which comprised most of the separate territories, and then the WWF, which was basically New York territory. They weren't quite on TV as much as they are these days. They had a Saturday program as well, but before that, with the AWA, they had live shows in Winnipeg. So my dad and my older brothers were taking me to AWA shows, and when I think back upon that now, it's just absolutely historical. Like some of the crazy famous wrestlers I was treated to seeing at that time. This was at the old Winnipeg Arena, which is torn down now, but we saw, I won't get into a huge list of the wrestlers that competed there. It would take forever, but the champion was Nick Bockwinkel. Still, when I think of a world wrestling champion, I think of Bockwinkel. He was just the epitome of class. He had that intelligent manner about him. He had that slicked back hair. He was he was from Beverly Hills. He was such a class act all the way through. That, to me, that's still what a champion represents. We had many awesome and historically important wrestlers come through, including everyone from Vern Gagne and Wahoo McDaniel, the Road Warriors, younger stars like the Midnight Rockers, Michaels and Jannetty, Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura, Mr. Saito, Bruiser Brody, Abdullah the Butcher. The list goes on and on and on. But as a kid, seeing this high quality wrestling on TV every week, and then getting to go to one live show every month at the arena with all the other fans, it was just the best of times. It was memories that I would never trade for $1 million. Memories that'll live on my whole life for sure.
And now, flash forwarding more to a modern time, how do you see the change in wrestling today, and what maybe intrigues you the most about today's product?
Well, one thing, wrestling's changed a lot since those days. One thing is that with more wrestling on TV and with the rise of the internet and such, the fans have a lot more ability to watch product, watch more different promotions, lots of different wrestlers and stuff. They read lots of backstage stuff, shoot promos, shoot interviews and such like that. We never had any access to that kind of stuff back in those days. So it was more, you took the product as it was presented to you. You didn't really analyze it or dissect it in your own mind that much. There wasn't message groups and discussion groups and all kinds of people bouncing stuff back and forth on social media and such like that. It was It was you took the stories as you got them, you took the matches as you got them. We also used to follow the wrestling magazines, like the print magazines such as Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Inside Wrestling, and The Wrestler. Those were the main ones. We used to follow the champions and the feuds and the matches through the magazines. Some of that action was 3 months old by the time we got to the magazine for it, but that's all we had and we loved it.
Do you find that the introduction of the way things are done modernly, you were mentioning about people, sharing backstage news and stuff like that, leaking stories and stuff like that, has that hurt wrestling as a modern day business? Has it bettered it in any way? What are your feelings towards the current state of things with the internet and how things go with different wrestling programs available on the internet and different news feeds available as well too?
Well, like they always say, each individual is different. Each individual values the period they came from in wrestling the most. I mean, closest to me is the wrestling action from AWA and such that captivated me as a kid, that had the real mystery, had the real magic around it. I think that's true of every fan. Everybody's favorite era is their own era, the one they grew up within. So I find mine very valuable. I value the memories I have from that. I'm not sure if wrestling is better or worse for being a little more talked about now on social media and on the internet. It's definitely changed. The fans have changed along with wrestling. I'm not really going to judge and say whether it's better or worse. For me, I liked it better in my period, just as I was talking about before. But nowadays, there's more eyes on the product. There's the wrestling product itself is probably of a higher quality in a lot of promotions and such like that. Training is better. Skills are better by wrestlers and such like that. Not sure if it's better or worse, but I'm certainly a strong fan of my era of wrestling.
I definitely know where you're coming from too. I myself grew up as a child in the 80s, and so therefore my love of wrestling came in the late 80s, early 90s. So there was still that mystery and intrigue, and you talk about the magazines, definitely was something as well that I had to pick up on. And same thing there too, where you're reading the stories, and these stories are well behind what's actually going on. And nowadays it's hard to keep up with a lot of the programming that's out there. I mean, it's wonderful as a fan because you can pick and choose what you want to go to and what you want to see, but it does, make it very difficult to try to keep up with absolutely everything. And you know what? I applaud those people out there that take the time to learn about every single company, every single wrestler on the planet. I don't even know how to keep up with people like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. It would be a full-time job in itself to even watch all the wrestling that's presented on the internet these days. Like we were just talking about before we went on air, there's some companies have 9 hours a week of brand new programming. Then that's just one company. There's other companies that have hours and hours of content to watch. Never mind all the back catalog that we all should be watching to color up our knowledge of professional wrestling. I can say I lived through the 70s and 80s as a fan of wrestling, but man, there's so many of those matches, famous matches, that I never saw because they weren't on TV. I'm still trying to watch them all going back on the internet, but trying to follow new wrestling and old wrestling at the same time. There's just not enough hours in the day, frankly.
Well, at least at the same time, we can say it's a nice treat for us as fans because anytime you're bored, you can turn on any sort of wrestling at any sort of time. Not keeping HIW Wildside in mind here when I ask this next question, but who would you say from the current crop of superstars out in the world that you're familiar with, who does Papa Smokes find the most exhilarating, most exciting to watch currently?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of independent wrestling. After a while of watching the major companies and such like that, I really craved a more grassroots return to wrestling just in my own viewing. So when I came across HIW Wrestling in Saskatoon here, I was drawn to it immediately. The guys have really a great mission statement in their company. They keep it simple, they keep it grassroots. they keep an old school kind of a feel to professional wrestling, and I was drawn to that immediately, and that remains one of the main companies that I watch and that I consume. I have a great time. I've been watching HIW for years, and it's an awesome product. It's right in my backyard here, and that's it for me. I'm a Wildside man forever.
Okay, well, speaking of which, let's start transitioning over to the Wildside things. So before we do, I just want to mention once again, Wildside TV is available on HIW Canada's YouTube channel. You can definitely check that out every single Saturday with myself and Papa Smokes here calling all the action. Like we said, 16 weeks in, it's been a fantastic run. We've got a very special edition of the show coming up here starting this Saturday. 3 very special episodes where Papa Smokes and I will actually be on screen. So you can check that out on HIW YouTube channel there. So go ahead and subscribe to them, turn on notifications as well. But HIW Wildside, you were mentioning about them being your product, your go-to. Out of the list of who's there currently, who are some of your favorites to watch in Wildside Wrestling?
Well, I think the best wrestler in Wildside and HIW Canada is El Assassino. He's got the Central Canadian Heavyweight Championship to prove it. It's the oldest and most prestigious belt in that company. I've seen him hold that belt a couple of times. I've seen him hold the Wildside Provincial Championship a couple of times, Tag Team Championships. To me, he's the top guy in the company, but they have a number of great performers in there, not to leave anybody out, but Michael Allen Richard Clark has raised himself as one of the top stars in HIW. We also have some great talent coming in from Calgary and other areas, such as Sheik Shabazz, Bobby Sharp, Kat Von Hees, the Slammer Sova. The talent just keeps coming in here. Plus, the boys are still doing development camps and training camps, looking for new talent all the time, looking for those who can get through their training camps and actually make it to developing a character and getting in the ring too. And I think they got a great thing going there, and we'll see more up and coming superstars as the months and years go on.
We definitely will. But speaking about Papa Smokes and HIW Wildside, where did Papa Smokes fit in? When did you start going to shows? How did you get seen at shows, known at shows? Tell them a little bit more about your journey, and let people know some of the stories that we've talked about off the air too, about your time with HIW.
Yeah, for sure. I first started going to Saskatoon independent wrestling. I'm going to estimate the year was 2003, 2004, something like that. The company was different then. It was called POW, and it was run by a couple of different fellas. I'm not going to get into that whole history right now, but they had shows out at the German Concordia Club, which is where HIW used to hold their shows as well. I saw a few POW shows. I was fortunate enough to see some of their stars, such as Principal Pound, who recently passed away, and we've been celebrating his career and life around HIW in the past while. We've already mentioned Honky Tonk Wayne Ferris. They had him in Honky Tonk Man as a special guest back in the early 2000s, and I was fortunate enough to see him and have a chat with him as well. But once it became HIW, I probably started going in about 2010 or 2011, I think, when those shows started heating up. Once again, out at the German Concordia Club. And I went to lots of them. I haven't missed many since I started going. A couple obviously due to vacation and such like that. But well, I had a crew of friends that were going with me. We watched back when King Cash used to be an active superstar. He was a perennial main eventer back then, and has held HIW Central Canadian belt as well. Rex Roberts with Crazy Horse was one of the stars back then. And we had a great time going there. Eventually, the venue switched over to Cosmo Hall, which is just off of Broadway. We had a good time at that venue as well. That was back when quite a lot of the time the champion was Robbie Gamble. He was a great talent in HIW. Career ended all too soon by injury, but I would say we started to get noticed by being enthusiastic fans, by being rowdy fans and such like that. A couple of the boys and I had a little gig where we were poking some fun at Michael Allen Richard Clark, and particularly at his hairdo. We started calling him Poodle Hair. Then it got into chants, all kinds of social media, heckling and such like that. Then one time we bought some rather disturbing looking poodle masks off the internet, started wearing those there. That definitely got some attention. And it kind of went on from there. I got to meet and know a couple of the wrestlers from HIW, a couple people in HIW management, and then fast forward a few years, watched a couple of cards with some HIW people, watched a couple of pay-per-views of wrestling on TV with a couple of HIW stars and management, and then to my delight, they offered me a gig doing commentary on the internet show with you, Munson. So I was thrilled to be asked. Commentary is not something I've ever done before. It's way out of my bubble of comfort, but to have the chance to be involved in a pro wrestling company and to be involved in live shows and to be involved in the production of a internet show on YouTube with episodes and editing and production and all that has just been a huge thrill for me.
Well, it's been great in general. It's been a fantastic time. This was something that even maybe a lot of the fans don't know the whole story, but I started going to HIW Wildside shows just over a year ago. Met a couple of people that were involved, and they invited me to the show. At the time, I was actually doing some article writing. I was writing for a company in the United Kingdom known as Cultured Vultures, doing some wrestling articles there. So I then took on a bit of a role doing some reviews written-wise for HIW. Got to know everybody there a little bit more, and then eventually, once I started doing my YouTube channel, I had Los Rudos come on the show. So El Asesino and I sat across the table here doing a one-on-one, doing a talk that time along with Dice Steel and El Musculo. And that afterwards was when Dice Steel came to me with the idea, let's make a Wildside TV show. That's what he wanted to do, and I loved the idea. He wanted to know, would I be able to be there to film these things? Would I be able to, put these things together, help edit it, and stuff like that? And then he presented me with the idea of commentary, which is also something I've never taken on, aside from doing my YouTube channel here. So I was like, it seems like a hefty task, but I wanted to take it on. And then it was kind of, we had an episode ready to go and trying to figure out the commentary. And basically, I was given your phone number and address and said, head on over, let's get this on the road. So that's how we met.
And that's actually how it happened too. I was aware of who you were before I actually met you, just because I had read a bit of your stuff about HIW online. I'd seen you running around with your camera, taking those great ringside shots that everybody enjoys. And but when we actually sat down to commentate the first episode, you and I were meeting each other for the first time and doing this for the first time. We did it straight off the board, no edits, no cuts, no nothing. And it hasn't always been an easy task to do, but I think we've been up to the task. There's a lot of work still to be done, but I think we're developing some skill, developing some chemistry together, and I just have a great time every time we sit down to do this.
Oh, I agree. I do as well, too. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show today, is to kind of allow ourselves to get away from the banter back and forth of the regular wrestling on our Wildside TV show, and just get to know things a little bit better, so the fans get to know us a little bit better. I mean, we take our digs at one another, but hey, we also have to spend a lot of time in a room together to make sure that we get these things just right, so that you, the fans, can enjoy the show each and every week on YouTube as well. But we've gone over a lot of different things. The HIW product has been absolutely phenomenal lately. Wildside TV has been something extremely exciting. Where do you see Wildside going from here? What do you think we can expect from Wildside TV in the next few months to the rest of the year here in 2018?
Well, I think the management in Wildside has really done an extraordinary job over the last year and a half, especially, I would say. I'm used to the HIW power hierarchy being centered in Regina, with obviously the company's owner, King Cash, operating HIW Canada out of there. But I've watched Dice Steel and El Assassino develop a stronger product in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, I should say, and the shows here have gotten much better. They've gotten much wilder. The fans have responded to that. We get such excellent turnouts, such loud, enthusiastic fans here, that I think the power hierarchy has switched over now. I truly believe Saskatoon Wildside has the superior product now. That being evidenced by the Super Show Battle Arts, which took place a couple of months ago at the Sutherland Curling Center, and that show must have been a huge pat on the back to HIW management and to all the performers there. It was just an undeniably awesome show. I would go so far as to say, aside from major companies and such, that's probably the biggest and most successful professional wrestling show that's ever been put on in the province of Saskatchewan, with the appearance of Cody Rhodes there too. Garnered so much interest among Saskatoon wrestling community. I think for the future, HIW Wildside is going to improve. I think visibility on the internet is vital these days. I think the product we're putting out, the product that real Bobby Munson works so hard on and does such a good job on the Wildside wrestling episodes on YouTube, are just coming across really excellent. They're a way for the fans to connect with the product and the company that's putting out these awesome matches. I think having commentary on them is also excellent for established fans and new fans as well, to have some context for the matches. You can watch those episodes and really jump into the ongoing story anywhere, because it's explained to a certain extent by us. The backstory, the future shows that are to come and such like that. We'll continue to polish up Wildside wrestling TV show on YouTube, and I just think we're going to go up in views, we're going to go up in viewership, and the quality of the wrestling will only improve through that too.
Oh, definitely. And you mentioned the fans. Fans have been absolutely crucial to things. And when we first started doing Wildside TV, there's always that little bit of a scare that you're going to present this show that the fans can see for free online, that maybe the turnouts won't be as good. But it seems like the fans are continuing to turn out in spades for us. They want to come out. They want to be seen on Wildside TV. They want to be heard on Wildside TV. And, we can't thank them enough, because when it comes down to filming these things, an empty arena is the last thing that we want to be filming. And the city of Saskatoon has absolutely gotten behind Wildside TV and made it an absolute spectacle that you almost, you have to witness live, as well as being able to go back and recap what you witnessed when it came to the live shows.
Absolutely. As great as Wildside TV is on YouTube, there's really no substitute for going to live shows. That's true of any wrestling company, from the major ones to the grassroots companies like HIW. The TV show is good. It's really really good to watch. But coming out to the live shows, there's a special magic to that. In a smaller venue and such like that, you have the fans have an interaction with the wrestlers. You want to yell something to your favorite or most hated wrestler, they're probably going to hear it in the ring, and they might respond to you. You might see wrestlers fighting outside the ring. Hell, they might fall right into your lap if you're not careful. We've seen the wrestlers fighting out the door and into the street and around to the other door. We've seen them in the wintertime and the summertime fighting. We've seen all kinds of wild action on the TV show, but when you go to the live show, it's something else special that you really have to see to believe.
And we have a roster, like just a phenomenal roster there. You mentioned some few names earlier, stuff like that, but not a lot of people realize just how much depth of an experience that we've got inside a Wildside wrestling ring. This is not just your typical mom and pop wrestling show that's been put together. I mean, there is a lot of history behind HIW, a lot of talent in HIW Wildside as well. I mean, for me, it's been an absolute honor working and learning through a lot of the people involved in HIW, and I always consider it to be a learning thing for me, because no matter how many hours I spend doing any of this, to me, the second you think you know it all is the second that you should retire from it all.
Oh, tell me about it, Munson. I know that exact feeling. Like I say, I've been a lifelong wrestling fan. I've been an analytical wrestling fan. I've tried to look deeper into the professional wrestling and the companies and the storylines they present and such. I thought I knew a lot about wrestling, and then when I started commentating for this small company, HIW in Saskatchewan, I realized there's a lot about wrestling I still have to learn, and yeah, I'm down for that too. It's been a great thing learning. Commentary doesn't just happen. You guys all you fans out there are used to listening to the professionals, the guys that have been doing it for years and years, the guys who have backgrounds in broadcasting and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's easier for them. They've been doing it. They've been working at it for a long time. You and I, it's a work in progress, but we're both up to that task. We're both open to learning, and that's why it's coming along. It's getting better, and it'll keep getting better after this.
Definitely, and I mean, a lot of people are quick to criticize. They hear guys that are out there doing commentary for WWE and all these types of big shows and stuff like that, and it's easy to criticize the one guy at the table that's a little bit goofy or something like that. But I'll tell you what, those guys still have degrees in broadcasting and could out-talk me on my best day and their worst day. And I don't care what anyone says. It's the same with wrestling. I mean, you can sit there and dislike a certain character or whatever. I mean, that's all a part of wrestling. But what really tends to irritate me, and I think I mentioned this in a review I did of a recent WWE pay-per-view where there was a match between Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal, and the fans are chanting things like "you can't wrestle" and stuff at these guys. Like, I'm sorry, but matter what is going on, whether you agree with the storyline, you like the particular characters, those guys wouldn't be inside that ring if they did not know how to wrestle. What they were doing was wrestling. Just because it doesn't live up to the standards of the indie scene or whatever it is that you like about professional wrestling doesn't mean that they aren't capable of performing inside that ring. They have a job to do. They're told to do that job, and they do what they can with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Munson. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I read a lot of stuff about wrestling on the internet and such, and I like hearing what the fans have to think. I think it's a valid and interesting viewpoint. But again, in this internet age where people look so deeply into each character, each match, each feud, each card, I think there's a time where it becomes overanalyzed, and by overanalyzing it, or by overanalyzing something, I think you sometimes help to destroy it. So I hear these fans, it's a little bit of a thorn in my side too, fans that complain and criticize the booking of professional wrestling. Kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. Here's something, booking in professional wrestling is kind of like play calling in football. Now, if if you know Papa Smokes, you know he's a huge football fan, and I really see a strong correlation here. In football, a play gets called before each play. This is where they decide what they're going to do with the ball once it's snapped. It's going to be a running play. It's going to be a throw. It's going to be whatever. Now, not every time is that play going to work out. And that doesn't mean that the play call was wrong. It simply means that something went wrong in between the call and the actual execution of the play. It's the same thing in wrestling. When a wrestler wins, and it's an unpopular win, a lot of fans will tend to say, well, that's terrible booking. That's why that person won that I don't like, is because of terrible booking. When I don't really think fans that watch sport such as professional wrestling on TV are in the position to comment on booking, because booking involves the booker for a professional wrestling company knows his roster, each wrestler inside and out. He knows their potentials, he knows their weaknesses, he knows their strengths, so he'll book according to that. And when a fan doesn't have all that background information at his disposal, then it's pointless to try booking the matches yourself. You will never know what all the factors that go into booking a match actually are. I'm not trying to say I know them either. I can't book matches because I don't know. I don't have all that information at my disposal. So when fans question the booking of matches, it kind of makes me chuckle a little bit, because there's no way that a fan watching on TV or watching live shows can know everything that goes into booking matches.
Well, it's got to be incredibly difficult to be able to understand what's going to work, and you're trying to appease millions of people or thousands of people, however many are watching your particular product. You're trying to make a booking decision that is going to benefit the company and the people involved. You can't always make the popular decision. If everybody made the popular decision all the time, it would kind of demean the idea of, the big, meaningful victories that some of these characters are given or, earn with time and stuff like that. So sometimes you need, villain booking for a certain reason, and that's why certain guys are booked to go over and create the, this disdain towards them and everything that people do. It's like with the gender experiment. Not everybody was behind it, not everybody loved it, but at the same time, it brought in a new character that, maybe he's not a main event player now, but, his run with the title didn't diminish him back down to the jobber character that he was. So they've established somebody that's in a little bit of the hierarchy, that's now, had a title run. So putting another championship of some sort in the company around him also is not, it's not a stretch anymore. They can do it. Nobody's going to disbelieve it like they did the first time. And the first time got people talking too. I mean, it was shock value. And in a modern day of wrestling, what is there left to do to shock people other than, these upset wins that you can come up with every once in a while?
Oh, absolutely. There's very little shocking the fans anymore. The rabid wrestling fans know everything that's about to happen already. They look into the spoilers, and they look into all this background information that you can find on the internet, and I think it's counterproductive to the fan in a certain way. I think they should have trust in their company. I think they should have trust in the angles and the storylines that the company is presenting. Don't question the booking all the time just because it's maybe not the booking that you would like. The booking is done for a certain reason. The booker knows which wrestler is good to go for the next few weeks. He knows if they're injured or they're battling injury or they're not. He knows if they're going to stay in their company or going to leave their company. There's so many factors that go into booking a successful wrestling company that I don't like it when fans question booking just because the star that they liked lost the match. Yeah. That's not a valid reason for questioning booking.
And quite frankly, I mean, if you don't like the way things are going with a certain company, we've talked about the plethora of availability for what you can watch out there. I mean, a lot of people sit there and they say, oh, New Japan is better than WWE. Well, I don't necessarily agree that New Japan is better than WWE. I think it offers a great alternative to WWE. So if you're not happy with what the WWE does, check out New Japan, check out Ring of Honor, check out Wildside TV as well too. You have a lot of different options out there. You don't have to stick to the one that everybody's talking about. I mean, if you want to tune into it, hey, great. You know what? If you dislike something, fine. That's your choice. But don't say that, it's bad booking or anything like that. If your particular favorite was upset about it and didn't want to do it anymore, they'd see out their contract, leave, and head to the indie scene. Plain and simple.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the way I look at indie wrestling these days, it seems like it is more of a viable career option for a lot of stars. Guys that have been in the big leagues and have left, guys that are about to go to the big leagues and such, can have vibrant independent wrestling careers going in a number of companies. It's going to be a lot of traveling and going to different areas. But guys such as Cody Rhodes, who we saw in Saskatoon recently, taking a booking up here, the guy's simply the toast of the indie wrestling world right now. Having him in Saskatoon was a huge thrill, but that guy probably doesn't even crave going back to the big leagues because he's arguably the biggest wrestling star in the world right now, and he's not even in the top league.
And he's his own boss at this point in time.
That's right. He does whatever he wants. If he wants to come up to Saskatoon and put on a show for us wrestling-starved fans up here, he's going to do it, and we saw that already this year.
And we were treated to a hell of a show. And speaking of shows that are more local, and speaking of HIW, I just want to quickly touch on the fact that HIW Canada are going to have their big show, the Pile of Bones Battle Royal, coming up on Friday, August the 31st, featuring Chelsea Green and also the hardcore legend Mick Foley. So that is going to be in Regina on Friday, August the 31st. I'm going to be there. Papa Smokes, are you going to be possibly making your way to Regina?
Are you kidding me, Munson? I would never miss a big wrestling show in Saskatchewan.
It's going to be one hell of a time. Pile of Bones Battle Royal in particular. Big announcement from HIW Canada. We are going to see the introduction of a new championship belt. What does this mean for the company?
Well, I think it's all part and parcel of HIW moving forward. I think HIW Canada needed to have a fresh new championship belt here, partly because El Assassino and the Stars of Wildside Saskatoon have a habit of winning that belt and bringing it up here, leaving Regina HIW Canada without a belt. But aside from that, I think it'll rejuvenate their scene a little bit. I'm interested to see what kind of a belt they purchase. I'm interested to see what kind of a tournament they might have to crown a new winner, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting.
Well, I believe it was announced that the winner of the Pile of Bones Battle Royal will be declared the new champion. That being said, what are your early predictions? Any thoughts on who might walk out of there as the champion? Even though we're not 100% sure who's all going to be there, but if you're to take a gamble right now, who do you think?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure who's all participating in this at this point. They haven't released too much promotional material about it yet, but I'm guessing most of the Wildside Saskatoon stars will be there, and all of the HIW Canada stars. I'm not sure about a winner. It's hard to pick a winner in a battle royal. Those are pretty unpredictable matches, but there's a couple superstars that stand out to me. I would go with El Assassino winning that belt as well.
That's a very big possibility. My personal thoughts, I was thinking Bucky McGraw looking strong in the Battle Arts Battle Royal. Yep. He's going to look strong going into that. And then Dixie Dragon gave him a run for his money too. So you're likely to see those two guys involved there, and very likely could see them walk away as champion as well. We know Jeff Tyler might be another factor in there as well. Another threat to watch out for. So definitely if you're in the Regina area, make sure to get your tickets. I believe we're almost completely sold out at this point too, Papa Smoke. So yeah. I mean, it's going to be huge, and you'll be able to meet the hardcore legend Mick Foley and also see Chelsea Green there as well too. So, but that's going to wrap up everything. I was really glad to finally get you on the show today, Papa Smokes. I hope the fans got to enjoy getting to know you a little bit better. Before we head out, do you have any final thoughts?
No, it's been a pleasure to be on Ring Respect Radio. Let's get this podcast up and running with some fan support here. I look to the HIW Wildside fans to give this a listen, get to know your announcers a little bit better, and that'll all add excitement to the shows coming up. Hope to see you all out at the next Saskatoon Wildside show. Other than that, I might see you at the HIW Pile of Bones Rumble in Regina.
Yes, definitely come meet and greet with Pop Smokes and I. Whenever you see us at a show, glad to meet any of the fans. While we're at it, though, we're going to head out. And if you are here listening in still, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button as well. Give us a big old thumbs up and make sure to share this around. Want to leave us any comments? Leave them in the comment section below, and we'll make sure to return a message right back to you. Thank you for tuning in this week to Ring Respect Radio.